I'm attempting a hardcore Nuzlocke on Pokémon Sword using only wonder-traded Pokémon. I'll be starting with 2 team members, but if a Pokémon faints in battle, we can't use it for the rest of the run. I won't be leveling past the next gym leader's ace, and we're playing on set mode, meaning we won't get the option to switch when we knock out a Pokémon. You may think starter choice isn't important here since we're going to trade it away anyway, but bear in mind that Hop's going to pick whatever's weak to whatever you pick. I gave Hop Score Bunny by picking Sobble and traded for my first team member. Blipbug may seem like a pretty bad option for the first Pokemon, but having access to Psychic type this early on, and a Pokemon that fully evolves pretty early, is actually quite good. Next up we get a Milcery, which is a pretty interesting option. We'll need the sweet item from either the cafe battle or from a raid battle later in the game if we want to evolve it. This could be kind of annoying, but fairy type's definitely overpowered this early on. First level cap's 20 before we have to fight Milo's grass types, which is pretty generous for a game like this. I want to evolve Blipbug before this battle because I want to get access to Confusion, a psychic type move that's going to be super effective against Milo. Dottler also gets access to Light Screen and Reflect, which could come in handy later. Try my luck at the Battle Cafe to try and get the sweet to evolve Milcery, but we get an old Gatto instead. There's not really much to talk about with these early rival battles, so I'm just going to skim over them quickly, but we make light work of Hop. I even pulled an Ash Ketchum and beat his flying type with a bug. I have to say, Pokemon Sword and Shield is probably one of my favourite generations. The overworld is absolutely gorgeous, and there's a lot of new Pokemon that are actually really cool. We head through the Galar Mine, and on a side note, I'm a pretty new Nuzlocker, so any items that I'm missing when I go through the game, like useful held items or TMs, would be really helpful to point out in the comment section. Can't use items in battle, but held items are allowed. Subscribing's always appreciated. Defeat the Edgelord Bead, and head over to the first gym. On the way, Sonia tells us about some sort of chicken from space or something. I don't know, I wasn't really listening. To enter the grass gym, we're met with a challenge, and I don't know when jumping through hoops before you have to fight the gym leader became a thing, but I have to say, I'm not a big fan of these challenges. I find them way too easy and kind of boring. I wasn't sure if over-leveling against the gym trainers inside was actually allowed, so I didn't do it just to be safe. Some of the level differences between gyms are really tight and make Nuzlockes like this kind of difficult. There's really only 10 encounters in this whole run, as opposed to getting a new Pokemon on every route that you enter. Milo starts with Glossifer, and we start with Dottler, going for a super effective Struggle Bug to take out half of its health straight away, and lower its special attack. It hits us with a Magical Leaf, and does absolutely nothing. We outspeed with another Struggle Bug, and take the Glossifer down. I know some Nuzlockers use the rule where you can't Dynamax in gym battles, but I'm not going to apply this rule on this run. There's already a limited number of encounters, and I just feel like adding that rule is a bit too much. His ace is an Eldegoss, and we hit it with Max Flutterby for super effective damage. We get the special attack drop, but it doesn't really matter since he's using Max Strike anyway, so it's not affected. I decide to switch it up on the next turn and go for a Max Mindstorm instead. Even with the speed drop, we still managed to outspeed and hit the Max Mindstorm. That was less than I expected, and I probably just should have stuck to Max Flutterby instead. I go for it next turn, and Dottler's getting pretty low on health at this point, but this is the end of the Dynamax turns. With Eldegoss now in the red, I think it's safe to stay in, as he doesn't really have any moves that can do a significant amount of damage to us. With just 13 HP left, we go for one more Struggle Bug and take down the Eldegoss. With that, we've defeated Milo, and we've got the first gym badge. That went pretty well, and now we can get a third team member, so I decide to catch another Pokemon and trade it off. Someone that's definitely not a hacker sent us a shiny Hitmonlee that was holding his only Master Ball. Amazing, but unfortunately we can't use it, so I swapped it out and we got Sizzlepede instead. As a general rule, if a Pokemon's too high level or obviously hacked in, I'm just going to trade it off again for something else. Nessa's Water Gym's up next, and Sizzlepede was one level over the level cap, but it's okay, I'm not going to use him in this fight anyway, so I decided to just keep him and use him for the next one. Nessa leads with Goldeen, and I start with Milcery. Luckily, we have Draining Kiss. Life-stealing moves like this in a Nuzlocke are vital since you can't use items in battle, and it's one of the only ways to heal. Horn Attack is doing just a little bit more than we can heal, but I'm not too worried about this. We go for another Draining Kiss, and we're doing pretty good damage to this Goldeen. I think one more is going to be enough to take it out. With Goldeen taken out, it's time for Arascuda, her second Pokemon. This one's not as much of a threat as Goldeen, and it starts off with an Aqua Jet. I honestly thought that we'd take it to half health, but we only did about a third instead. We did manage to get to full health though, so it's just going to be a back and forth from here. With Arrokuda beaten, her ace is Dreadnought. I use Max Guard for the first turn, just to waste a turn of Dynamax, and then on the next turn, Dreadnought uses Max Geyser. I know this move can hit hard, but Dynamax Milcery tanks it pretty well. Set up the rain now, but at least we can use Max Guard next turn. I decided to go for a Max Starfall to see how much damage I could do with it. Unfortunately, it hits Dreadnought for pretty much nothing, and there's not really a lot we can do now, even with the Dynamax turns finished. I'm just hoping that Draining Kiss will heal us enough to take this Dreadnought down. The next turn it goes for a Razor Shell, and it hits really hard. With that, Milcery's out, and this is not looking very good. All we've got left is Dottler, since we can't even use Sizzlepede because he's over leveled. I don't think we're going to win this one. We go for a super effective Confusion in a last ditch effort to take this thing down. Dreadnought outspeeds with a Razor Shell, and I'm pretty sure how this is going to go. I don't know how, but somehow Dottler survived. We managed to get a Confusion off, but it really doesn't do much. Since it's so early in the run, I decided it would be fun to trade off my entire team for a new one and see how I can go on a second time around. Still pretty new to Nuzlocke, and this is a pretty difficult challenge, so I think that's fair. In a weird twist of fate, our first Pokemon is Tutel. That's pretty cool actually, I'm quite happy to use this. Next up we get a Bunnelby, which is pretty useful considering it's got a wide range of moves, lots of different type coverage as well. Finally we trade our last team member, and we get a Ninjask. In the right situations, this could be really good, but it's also quite fragile, so I'll need to be careful. After a bit of training, we evolve Tutel into Dreadnought and Bunnelby into Diggersby. It's time to take on Nessa again, and we start with Dreadnought this time. Bite does a hefty chunk out of Golbeen, and I can already tell that this is going to go better than last time. She hits us with a weak Water Pulse, but unfortunately, she gets the Confusion. Can't really afford to switch out now, so I just try and break through. Luckily we get through with another bite and take the Golbeen down. Got our Arrokuda up next, and I'd probably like to switch, but unfortunately we're playing on set mode, so I don't get that option unless I want to take a hit, which I don't really feel like doing. Probably should have just switched anyway since we hit ourselves in Confusion, but we go for a bite next turn, and we manage to break through and hit it. I know from last time that this thing has weaker defences than Goldeen, and unfortunately we just missed the one hit KO. We do manage to get the flinch off though, so I think it's time to switch in for Ninjask. The main reason I'm switching into Ninjask here is I've taught him Absorb, which is a grass type move, so once I Dynamax him, I'll be able to use the Max Grass move. I'm pretty sure this move is going to be 4 times effective against Dreadnought since he's Rock and Water, which are both weak to Grass. I'm going to see how much damage it does, and I might need to switch in after. Dynamax Dreadnought next turn, and I go for a Max Overgrowth. I really don't want to underestimate this thing again, it literally wiped out my entire team last time. We managed to get just over half, as it goes for a Max Strike in retaliation. This hits Ninjask really hard, he goes down to 4 HP with a critical hit. This could have easily been the end of Ninjask, but I know we're going to outspeed, even with the speed drop, so I go for another Max Overgrowth, because we get speed boost to bring our speed back up again anyway. Even though I know we outspeed this thing, this is still a really nervous moment. I don't know why, I just felt like Dreadnought was just going to pull some nonsense and hit me. And it turns out my fears were justified. The heal that he got in between the turn was just enough to keep him alive, and another Max Strike knocks Ninjask out. I'm not too upset about this to be honest, because Ninjask is quite a weak Pokemon, and I know there's better options. He would have been a pretty good option to have later on considering he learns fighting type moves which are good against fighting for a later gym, but out of all the team members I could have lost, he's probably the one I'd let go. We send in our own Dreadnought and go for a Water Gun to try and finish it off. He does barely anything and he manages to get Max Darkness off. I know nothing he uses is going to do too much damage to Dreadnought at this point, so we're alright. This is his last Dynamax turn as well. Next turn we go for a Water Gun against a non-Dynamax Dreadnought, and that's enough to take it out. With that we've beat Nessa, and we've got our second gym badge. It's time for a new team member. Kind of annoying that we'll still only have 3 team members, but hopefully after the next gym we can get a 4th. We send Ninjask away, and in return we get a Purloin. This is not great, but it's also not too bad. At least it's got a different type coverage to the rest of our team. We evolve it into Lipard, and move on There's a couple of rival battles through here with Bede, Team Yell, and a battle with Marnie. We get very close to the level cap, and as I go into the fire gym, I realise I'm going to have to take out 5 wild Pokemon in this battle. It gets really close to me overleveling Dreadnought, but luckily we managed to get through the entire challenge and don't overlevel. I'm pretty sure Nuzlocke rules say that once you're inside the gym, you're allowed to overlevel, but I tend to just go for the final gym fight with the actual gym leader is the point when you're allowed to overlevel. This gym's the fire gym, and Kabu sends out his Ninetales to start. I'm not too worried about this guy, since we've got Dreadnought, he's rock and water type. This means I resist the fire type moves by 4 times. It was this moment I realised I'd been outsmarted. He went for Will-O-Wisp and got the burn off on Dreadnought. This is going to lower my attack, which normally wouldn't be a problem, but I taught Dreadnought Waterfall as his only water type move. This is really annoying since it's a physical damaging attack and burn's going to lower my attack. I end up just going for Rock Tomb instead since it's super effective as well, but I'd probably rather use my water type moves. We managed to take the Ninetales down, and next up is his Arcanine. This thing could be a threat. It hits me with Intimidate just to rub salt in the wound and lower my attack again. Probably should have predicted this going into a fire gym, knowing that there's a high chance that I'll get burnt. It's all good practice, and at least now I've learnt my lesson for next time. We hit Arcanine with a Rock Tomb, and it does less than I would have hoped, but we do get the speed drop. This fire is doing a lot of chip damage to us at this point, but we decide to go for another Rock Tomb. Our plan is to get Arcanine just low enough that I can switch into Diggersby and take it out. Don't really want to leave Dreadnought in since he's probably the strongest team member, and I definitely want to keep him after this gym. Arcanine goes for a weak bite, and I think we can go for one more Rock Tomb. We knock it into the red, and it's time to switch out to Diggersby. We also get another speed drop, which is excellent. We might actually be able to outspeed now. I'm not even surprised at this point, but he goes for a Will-O-Wisp and gets the burn off on Diggersby as well. At least we'll manage to take it out this turn without taking too much damage. We go for a high horsepower, which should be more than enough to finish the Arcanine off. It's time for his ace now, and it's going to be a Sizzlepede. And it's not just any Dynamax, it's a Gigantamax this time. We may still have the type advantage, and we can Dynamax as well, but I'm definitely not underestimating this thing. I'm guessing it's either going to use its signature move, or its bug type, since its signature is going to be fire type, which isn't going to be very effective against Diggersby. There's not really a lot I can do except just go for Max Quake and hope that it does enough damage. It hits for basically nothing, which is really disappointing. It decided to go for its signature move, which takes us down to 77, and with Burn Chip, this is not looking good. I tried to go for Max Strike next turn, just in case it does more damage, but since we've been burned, it's still doing about the same. We do manage to get a speed drop, and it goes for Max Flutterby on its next turn. I think this is going to hit pretty hard. This would have been really clutch since he hangs on with just 7 HP, but with the Burn Chip and the Fire Spin Chip, it's going to take Diggersby down. At least now we have a clean swap into Dreadnought, and I'm hoping this is going to be enough to finish it off, especially since all of our status drops have been taken away. We go for a Waterfall, and it hits for about half of what he has left. I'm not certain, but I think one more Waterfall will take it out. If we weren't burned, we probably would have taken it out last turn, and we definitely would this turn. The signature move does a decent chunk, and the burn and fire spin hit Dreadnought, meaning next turn, if we don't take this thing down, we're going to lose. Luckily it's the end of his Dynamax turns, so I think we're going to do a bit more damage here. One more Waterfall takes the Center Scorch out, and that was way too close for comfort. That gym should have been free, to be honest. With all of our type advantages, I'm surprised that we lost a team member. But you live and learn, and it's time to get a new team member anyway. Got really unlucky and kept getting really high level Pokemons like this Psychic type that I can't pronounce, so I decided to just keep trading until I had something I could use. Finally we managed to get a Snom, which was in the level cap, but isn't a particularly good Pokemon. I'm okay with this because at least it's a different type to what we've got. We head over to Hammerlock next. Some random old lady decides that she wants to have a chat with us, and I'm not really sure why. It's time for the fighting gym next, and it would be really good to have Ninjask here. I suddenly realised something when I walk into this town. My entire team is weak to fighting. This is not good. I decided to put the Rocky helmet onto Lipard and evolve Snom. just in case. We're going to need all the preparation we can get here, so I buy Blizzard with all the watts that I've got to teach this Nom. We're going to need a miracle to beat this fight, and we're going to need an even bigger miracle if we're not going to lose a single team member. He's also the first gym leader to have 4 Pokemon, which is a lot. She takes down Frostmoth with no trouble, and Lifeard next. Dreadnought follows straight after that, and we got absolutely destroyed without even getting to our ace. I decide to trade the whole team off again one more time, and this is going to be the last time. First up we get a Yamper. Next is a Raymond raid, which unfortunately was just above the level cap. We trade that away and managed to get a Rowlet. This team's actually looking a lot better now. Finally for Lifeard, we get a Magikarp, which is incredible. I evolve my Rowlet into Dartrix, my Magikarp into Gyarados, my Dartrix into Decidueye, and my Yamper into Boltund. This team's actually looking really good now, and we go up against Faye again. We've technically lost the run twice now, but I feel like if we got this team in the first place, we probably wouldn't have even lost. It's time for attempt 3, and now we have max airstream, so this gym shouldn't be too much trouble. We take out her Hitmontop in one move. I decided to Dynamax early here because I wanted to wipe out 3 of her team members before going against her ace, and I feel like we had a better shot doing it this way. Unfortunately, Pangoro manages to survive a max airstream, so we waste all 3 of our turns before even getting to our ace. We still have Pluck, and we go against Surfetch, who just wastes a turn by using Detect. We go for Pluck again, and hit for pretty decent damage. I think one more Pluck will be enough before we switch out, but Surfetch has other plans. He uses a brutal swing and takes the Decidueye down to 2 HP. That could have been really bad. I decide to switch into Boltund to try and take this Surfetch down. This was more of a safety switch, since I had a feeling I was going to lose a team member in this fight, so I thought if I switch into Boltund now, at least if I lose him I'll get a clean switch into Gyarados, who should be able to take Machamp out at the end. She wastes another turn with a Detect, and we go for Psychic Fangs next. It's pretty clutch that Boltund learns this move since it's super effective against fighting types. She sends her Machamp in, and Psychic Fang hits really hard. Just a little bit more and we would have taken half itself out. It uses its signature move Max Chi Strike and absolutely obliterates Boltund. That's kind of disappointing, but at least now we can switch into Gyarados, and with only half health I think this Machamp's going to go down. Gyarados also has the ability Intimidate, which is going to lower this thing's attack. That's going to be really useful. I also taught Gyarados Scald specifically for this fight, because I learned from last time that getting the burn off against these kind of Pokemon is really useful. We do manage to hit the burn first turn, and this thing's going to be really weak now. He goes for a max strike and does absolutely pitiful damage to Gyarados. This should be easy now. He gets a speed drop, but I still think we outspeed, and the burn chips his health away. I go for another Scald, and as long as we can survive this next hit, we're going to be alright. He goes for his signature move again, and it doesn't do really anything at all. This burn and attack drop from Intimidate has come in really clutch at the end. It's kind of annoying that Gyarados decided to eat his Citrus Berry here, since we didn't really need him to do that, and I kind of would have wanted to save it for later. But we hit another Scald, and it hits a critical, even though we don't need it. It also doesn't really matter that his Gigantamax turns are over now, but I guess every little helps. For some reason he managed to outspeed us next turn, and he hits us with a really powerful strength. It's also a critical hit, and somehow Gyarados hangs on with 1 HP. I was not expecting that in the slightest. I thought we already had this in the bag, and we were really lucky to survive that. With B defeated, we've got ourselves our 4th gym badge, and it's time to trade for a new team member. Sent Boltund away since we lost him in the last fight anyway, and in return we managed to get something really good. Unfortunately it was slightly over the level cap, so we won't be able to use it for the next gym, but Eevee is going to be such a valuable member that I decide to keep it anyway. I'm going to evolve this into a Sylveon, since it's going to be really useful for the Dragon Gym later. We head to the Fairy Gym next, and I really like the design of this forest and the design of the city. Every route in this game is really unique, especially this one. Usually this gym's pretty free, considering you get asked 3 questions which give you massive stat boosts throughout, but I only have 2 team members, and also Decidueye is weak to fairy types. I decided to teach it Steel Wing and Synthesis as a way to heal and a super effective move. We hit the Weezing with a Steel Wing and don't manage to do half. It hits us in return with a Sludge and it gets the poison off. This is really annoying as Decidueye is already getting a bit weak. We hit another Steel Wing and take the Weezing down, and it's time for our second Pokemon. She sends in a Mawile and I have to switch out to Gyarados. I would have liked Decidueye to do a bit more damage to her team before sending in Gyarados, but I do have a plan for this gym. This Mawile can't really do very much to us, and after Intimidate it can do even less. I'm going to set up with Dragon Dance and try and get to max attack and just wipe the rest of her team with Gyarados. She asked us a question, and the answer to this one's purple, even though you'd expect it to be pink, since the fairy gym's covered in pink. This first stat boost is for special defense and defense, which means this Mawile's even more useless now. I'm definitely going to be able to set up well with Dragon Dance. We get an attack and speed boost every single time we use it, and the next question that we answer will give us an attack boost as well. Gyarados should be able to outspeed everything with the speed boost and manage to sweep her team. We get to +6 attack and about +5 speed. I think we've also got +1 defense and +2 special defense, so she really can't do anything. We hit with a waterfall which doesn't take her out since she's been using iron defense, but another one manages to finish it off. With this, she's going to have her Togekiss, and I also have another plan just in case. I'm going to Dynamax this turn and go for Max Geyser, since it should be a one-hit KO. But the main reason I'm going for this is to set up the rain, meaning that Max Geyser next turn will do even more damage against their ace. To be honest, if I didn't get Gyarados or have any way to set up, this thing probably would have wiped my team, but with one Max Geyser, we managed to absolutely obliterate it. There's a reason experienced Nuzlockers don't use Gyarados or use moves like Dragon Dance, but being the absolute noob that I am, I don't really mind. We terrify the granny into giving us the badge, and with that we can get a new team member. We're also going to be able to use Eevee now since it's within the level cap, and I'm going to evolve it into a Sylveon. The next gym's Rock, and we've got Gyarados, which is a water type, so we shouldn't have any trouble. Grab the Soothe Bell and teach Eevee Charm, so next time it levels up it should evolve. Time for a rival fight against Hop, and he starts with his new Trevenant. We go for a super effective Flamethrower, and it does over half damage. It retaliates with Confuse Ray, which could be kind of annoying. We break through Confusion and hit another Flamethrower to take the Trevenant down. Next up, he sends in his Boltund, so we send in Decidueye. It's not the best switch, but it's better than Gyarados. He goes for a Spark, which is not very effective, and we decide to go for Spirit Shackle. I've never used this move before, but I was pleasantly surprised with the amount of damage that it did. It nearly took the Boltund out in one hit. He just throws and goes for a Roar, bringing Gyarados back in. He uses a Hyper Potion next turn, and we use a Flamethrower. Another one isn't going to be enough to take it out, so I switch back to Decidueye again, knowing that it's going to use Spark. Considering how much Spirit Shackle did last turn, it should be enough to take him out. He's going to send in his Cinderace next, and the plan is to bait a Fire-type move as I switch into Gyarados. I managed to get the Intimidate off and lower its attack as well. He does exactly as I expected, and goes for Pyro Ball. It doesn't really do much to Gyarados, and now we've managed to switch into a super effective move. I taught it Hydro Pump before the match, so I decided to go for that instead. I'm really hoping for a one-hit KO here. Cinderace goes for an Acrobatics. That also doesn't do too much damage, but I know he's got other team members and I kind of want to keep Gyarados healthy. We hit with the Hydro Pump, and it's not enough to take it out in one hit. I decide to go for Waterfall next, since it's 100% accurate, as he just throws with an agility. Waterfall wipes out his Cinderace, and next up is his Snorlax. I decided to go for a Dragon Dance to try and boost our attack, as I don't really know what his last team member is. I'm pretty sure this Snorlax can't really do too much to Gyarados either. It goes for a Body Slam. I suddenly realised that this could paralyse, and that would be really bad, so instead I went for a Waterfall. I think 2 of these should be enough to take this tank down. It decides to just go for Stockpile next turn, which means that we get a free Waterfall to finish it off. His last Pokemon is a very pleasant surprise. With a Heatmore, we can take this out with 1 Waterfall. We managed to get a Rookity after the last gym, and we evolved it into a Corvisquire, and then we evolved Corvisquire into Corviknight, which would be an excellent addition to the team. With Corviknight, Gyarados, Decidueye, and Sylveon, we head towards the Rock Gym. It already starts with Barbaracle, and I set up Dragon Dance with Gyarados. My plan is to set up as many of these as I can, and just try and wipe his whole team with Waterfall, since it's super effective. He hits us with a Rock Tomb, which is also super effective against us, and I don't think we can do many more Dragon Dances. I just decide to go for Waterfall and not bother risking it, and we managed to do over half health after that Dragon Dance. He uses a Shell Smash next, and we go for another Waterfall. With Barbaracle down, his next team members shuckle, and we go for Waterfall again. This time we get a one-hit KO. This is looking pretty good. He sends in Stonejourner next, and I tried to go for another Dragon Dance. This turned out to be a bit of a mistake, as he goes for a Rock Tomb and knocks me down to 21 HP. This also lowers our speed, which is not great. Fortunately, I gave Gyarados a Citrus Berry before this match, so he brings his health up to 57 again. I really doubt we can withstand another Rock Tomb, so I go for a Waterfall and just pray that it's going to finish him off. He survived with a Slither and retaliated, taking Gyarados out. This is absolutely devastating, as we've just lost our best team member. Send in Decidueye and use a Steel Wing to finish off Stonejourner. All that's left is his ace. It would have been really nice to have Gyarados here to use a water type move that would be 4 times effective, but unfortunately we're going to have to use Decidueye. Even with a critical hit, Max Steel Spike does barely anything to this Colossal, and it goes for a Max Flare, which is super effective against Decidueye. This actually does less than I was expecting, and Decidueye can probably tank another one of these, but that's going to be it, especially with the next one doing more damage due to the sun. We go for a Max Guard to waste one of his Dynamax turns, and his Max Flare fails. I try Max Phantasm on the next turn to see if it does more damage, and unfortunately it only does a tiny little bit more. We have knocked it down to half health now, and we do get a defense drop, but this Max Flare is going to be dangerous. It hits Decidueye hard and takes him out. Send in Sylveon to try and finish him off and go for a super effective dig. We manage to outspeed, which means that his rock throw is going to miss. He goes for it anyway and misses the attack. Next turn we hit the dig and finish the Colossal off in one hit. This is a really bittersweet victory, as we lost 2 of our best team members. Make matters worse, all we get out of the next Wonder Trade is a Scovet. In the next rival battle against Hop, he takes out my Sylveon with his Snorlax. Corviknight falls to a Pyro Ball from Cinderace. And with only Scovet left and his Cinderace out on the field, that's the end of the run. I'm pretty happy with how far I got in this run, as it's a pretty difficult one with very little encounters. I think for the next one, I'm probably going to do a traditional Nuzlocke with Pokémon Sword, since it's going to be a little bit easier. I don't want to keep failing runs on the channel, and until I get a bit better at Nuzlocking, I think that's the best bet. If you managed to watch all the way to the end of the video, I really appreciate your support, and clicking subscribe would really mean a lot to me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.